But it is interesting how the dense urban environments are getting hit more.
Well, if I could start off with the first question, that would be, what has been new at the Salt Lake City Council? What have you been working on? And I know that will probably lead into the budget, but I'm wondering if there's other issues besides the budget that you're also working on.
Yeah, so this we did a few things. We approved a couple budget amendments for the RDA budget. We also approved the CDBG funding. We had several weeks of discussion on that, looking for funding for some organizations that didn't get funding and considering, things like that. One thing that a lot of people were interested in was the in-between. And we chose not to fund that through CDBG in line with the mayor and the board's recommendations, but we're hoping to fund that through a different source. So we're still waiting on hopefully a source of funding for that. But we did approve that, approved the 5-year plan for CDBG home. A couple more modifications. Previously approved loans for different developments or developments that have been taking a little bit longer than planned, or things didn't go exactly right, so we modified them. And then we also on Tuesday we extended the local emergency declaration for COVID-19. We also had Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson attend our meeting, as well as the County Health Department Director, and heard from those two individuals about some of their decisions with that. I think everyone's a little bit concerned about the state moving to orange, but understanding the governor's direction and the need to get the economy moving, that's the direction that the state's going. So trying to figure out how to keep Salt Lake City as safe as possible. So we heard several things about that. And then do you want to jump into the budget, or were there any other things you had questions about? There are
well, just to mention, I think for folks who don't know, that the in-between is located in ELPCO on 13th South. So that is something that is, something that we follow and something that's important for residents. We have a lot of supporters of the in-between here in our neighborhood. So thanks for that update specifically on that. I know it's going to be a tight budget season, both right now and going forward. But one other thing I wanted to ask about was the ACE funds, the Arts, Community, and Education, or Culture and Education funds. I believe those have been allowed to be used for operating expenses, not just for events. I think that was an administration decision, but did the council get a briefing on that or have a part in that?
Yeah, we did. So what they've actually decided to do, so they had some Arts Council funds that there are events that aren't happening, and so there are some extra funds, and they've actually moved those to an emergency relief fund for local artists. So that was, we looked into that. It's not something that the council had to approve, but they did give us a briefing, and we gave some input as to some of the things were who should get that funding, how it should go out. There were some questions about immigration status that we discussed, that feeling like that wasn't necessarily relevant to their contribution to Salt Lake City, but they trying to make it in line with, I guess, the state is also doing an artist relief fund. As you know, everyone's been hit by the economic crisis, and artists often weren't eligible for some of the SBA loans or other funds that were available. So they're smaller than the emergency loan funds that we gave to the businesses, but they're going to individuals, so hopefully they can help that person make it through this time.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Now, if you could talk about the budget, that came up, I believe, at just this Tuesday's City Council meeting.
Yeah. So we've started the budget season. The first ones we heard were the library and the airport budgets. Those are enterprise funds, so they're slightly outside of the general fund. We also have the public utilities, and the Metropolitan Water District was this past week. I have a copy of the budget here, if you can see that book, but that's the mayor's recommended budget for fiscal year 21. That's available online. It's slc.com/budget/mayor 2021.
Got it.
And that's available. That's the mayor's recommended budget. And so now as a council, we'll be getting briefings about every department and how they intend to use the funds, how that will change this year, last year, if they have any major capital improvement projects that they need to take care of that are kind of one-time expenses. For instance, the Metropolitan Water District is going to have an added fund for electricity this year because they're doing some upgrades on their Cottonwood Canyon facility. And so we're going to need to use a facility that's coming from closer to Utah Lake, and that requires pumping. So while they're upgrading the one facility, we'll have some extra expenses for electricity for that. So there's a lot of things like that. If anyone is interested, tune in, take a look at the PDF, and feel free to give us your opinion.
Great, thank you. And that is available, you mentioned, on the mayor's website, I believe, right? You just go to SLC Gov. SLC. Yep, okay.
.com. And I link.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we'll put that up here in the show notes for this as well. It looks like a very thick book, so good luck with that.
It is a thick book, and yeah, we're excited to dig into it. But usually the departments, so far, they've given us really good briefings, and we've been able to ask the questions that we needed to. So that's been good.
Gotcha.
A good news on the budget is that fiscal year 2020 was really good for the city. The revenues came in much higher than expected. So we have a pretty healthy fund balance. So going into this economic crisis, we are able to hopefully use some of that fund balance to cover some of the losses that we expect. Another positive, which is just a little bit weird, is that our fiscal year happens to end here soon and the new one starts. And so because of the timing of the economic crisis, we've been able to make adjustments to that budget. So we didn't approve a budget that was going to use a bunch of funds for really exciting one-time uses. We were able to make changes. So those are good things. The bad thing is we are balancing the budget on one-time funds, or the mayor's recommended budget is to be balanced on one-time funds. So it is balanced, and we don't expect a reduction in services, but there are a lot of really great projects that we hoped to do that we probably won't be able to do because we're just trying to save that money and make sure that we can weather it. Okay.
Gotcha. Thanks for that explanation. The timing thing is definitely interesting. That sort of fell in a sweet spot.
Yeah, I thought so too. It gave them some time to kind of rebalance the budget differently and not spend money or not allocate money to things that aren't necessary right now.
And am I right in understanding the mayor and her administration proposed the budget, but the city council has to approve it and allocate the funding?
That's correct. Yeah. So the final budget decisions are based on the city council. The city council makes that decision, but the mayor is required to deliver us a budget. I believe it's the first Tuesday in May. So that's why we just barely got it. So now it's our turn to go through it, and we have to approve that.
Okay, well, something we'll be following for the next couple of weeks for sure. So thanks for that update. If people wanted to get in touch with you about budget issues or other issues, what is the best way to reach you? The city county building, I think, is still closed, right? So everyone is kind of working remotely.
Yep, the city county building is closed, though I do have access to my voicemail there. The phone number for the office is 801-535-7600. I'll also give my cell phone number, and I'm happy to have people reach out to me there. That's 385-499-0923. If it's something I have the answer to, send me a text and I can respond quickly. If it's something that will take a little research, it's better to send a voicemail to the office, and then we can get the whole staff starting to dig up some answers. So if it's digging into police records or looking at the status of a certain road reconstruction or something, those are great times to use the office number. My email is Darin, DARIN.MANO @slcgov.com. And that's also a great way reach me. If it's general comments that you think the whole council should receive, then council.comments@slcgov.com is the best place to send that, and that will be forwarded to every council member. So any upcoming decision we're looking at, if you want everyone to get that, send it there.
All right, and the council meets generally on Tuesday afternoons now, is that right? Virtually?
Yes.
Okay, so getting in any comments ahead of those Tuesday meetings is always preferred. That way, before you make decisions, you'll have people's information. So that's great.
That's true.
Well, Darin, I wanted to put another question to you that has a little bit to do with your background as an architect and a designer. And I think I sent this to you about a week or two ago. And that is, as Utah starts opening up and Salt Lake City starts opening up, people start going to public places. The zoo is open. Tracy Aviary opened last weekend. I'm curious about your sort of ideas on how public spaces might change. Normally we all like to gather all together for like the Arts Festival and the Pride Parade, but that is not going to be a reality for the next couple of months and even longer. How do you think our public spaces can be adapted? What do you envision happening as someone who really studies form and function like this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have a really clear, specific answer to that. I think that we've seen at stores, like X's marked on the ground for where you're supposed to stand when you're waiting in line. So just giving a little bit of distance between people waiting in lines. I think, drive-throughs and delivery is going to continue to happen. So we'll live in this sort of virtual space a lot more, like you and I are speaking right now. Mm-hmm. I have joined a few webinars from architects around the country looking at how we're transforming spaces like disused event centers into temporary hospitals right now. So I think we'll see a lot of transformation of space. It's interesting. It gets into policy a little bit because there's certain spaces that will be used for things that they weren't intended for. So looking at building code issues is going to be interesting. How are those different for temporary spaces versus permanent spaces? I'm really worried about the events that we're going to lose. I was actually on the Japan Festival board, and that would have happened last week. Yeah. And we unfortunately weren't able to hold that, and hopefully we can do that next year. The Pride Festival was rescheduled till September. Hopefully that can happen. It's hard to know what will happen between now and then, and if we'll be in a place to have a festival like that. So those are things that I don't really know if there's a good way to do that. I think connecting is going to be sort of in the game for the next few months.
I mean, you can almost imagine if we start to have events in public spaces, instead of all the seats being filled, but some sort of like 3 or 4 seat buffer between people, like at the Vivint Center or at Gallivan Center or even the Eccles Performing Arts Center.
Yeah. I think we've seen airlines discuss that as well, leaving every other seat open or every other row open. Restaurants that are now able to do in-person dining, I think, are required to have their table spaced a little bit further apart. And people are the workers are supposed to wear masks. They did not require patrons to wear masks at restaurants. I think that gets really difficult for them. I mean, a lot of restaurants operate on razor-thin margins, so I think I was listening to the radio this morning, and there's a lot of restaurant owners that don't even know if it's worth opening if they have to take out half of their tables and can only serve a certain number of patrons. So I think we'll see a lot of expansion of space. We live in an urban environment, and I love that, and I love the connection between our neighbors, but it is interesting how the dense urban environments are getting hit more with something like this. And I don't know, I hope that doesn't lead to a suburban flight, that I hope that doesn't happen, but it does have that potential. So.
Okay, well, thank you for your perspective on that. Really appreciate your expertise as an architect and designer on the council, and probably for this question, which you didn't anticipate a couple months ago.
It's an interesting one, but thank you.
When you got on. So appreciate you spending time with us in our ELPCO community. We're glad to have you as our council member, and we'll keep in touch and look forward to seeing your work on the budget and other issues for the city. So thank you, Darin.
Thank you, Jason.